I wonder though, you know, do you ever run into people who are on an allyship journey who are dealing with fear that the BIPOC people or the female identified people or the people who they're trying to walk alongside won't trust them, to listen, won't trust them to be an empathetic presence, and what can allies do about that if they find themselves afraid that they won't be trusted, or if you're trying to support another ally who is afraid that they won't be trusted? What can people do?
I love that question, Cord. And I'm looking at my own experience because that's all I have really to speak from. And where I think I've built trust with friends and colleagues, BIPOC friends and colleagues around this work, it's happened over a period of time. And it's a sequence of little moments where I've not said the right things or the wrong things, but I've shown up in such a way that they can feel my humanity and they sense that I can feel theirs. And so it's actually a quality of the nervous system more than anything in my experience that is experienced as trustworthy. It's not knowing the right lingo per se, though that helps. It's not rescuing or knowing when to call someone out necessarily. That's top of the list, but in fact, it's just feeling that they can sense my own connection to my own emotions and my humanity, and that I'm being honest with myself and honest with them. And so that's something that is hard because white supremacy culture relies on fear. Fear is absolutely central. And so rather than seeing all of the incredible paradoxes of this work as opportunities to understand a more complex, but to see this work in a more complex way and understand ourselves in a more nuanced way, we see it instead as pitfalls that are inescapable that will destroy us. And this is where aspiring white allies, aspiring white men who want to be allies as well, like we need to see these paradoxes, not just as pitfalls, but as possibilities. And that as we come across something that feels like a no-win situation for us, that we actually look for how can navigating through the inevitable discomfort actually bring more humanity into our own experience and the experience of those around us.
I just have to say that, like, sometimes when Dan talks, like, it's almost as if he's reading a novel. And like you just said, see, the paradox is not as pitfalls, but possibilities. The alliteration, Dan, like, it just comes from you. It's so, it's so lovely. I just had to mention that. Yeah, definitely. And certainly with the fear, right? Yeah, exactly. It's completely poetic. It was really beautiful. Because fear is so much a part of it, right? And that's the thing, is people they'll jump in, they really want to do something, they want to change something, and then they'll offend somebody, partly because they're like, I think about it like for example, like I've had difficult things that have happened in my life. Like, for example, my mother passed away when I was 22. Let's say, like, if I'm sharing that and people are like, oh, wow, that's terrible. There are ways that you could react to that are like, and let's say I shared that and somebody's like, oh, wow, that's terrible. I'll be like, yeah, it was really difficult, and it was a challenging time, right? That's, for somebody I don't know very well, that's about all I need to really explain. One of the things that I found in my life is that when I have conversations with other women who have lost their mothers, they tend to find a lot of healing in talking with me, because I have done all the, like, sort of processing and therapy work and those kinds of things. But if somebody were to come to me and then be like, oh my God, that's the most horrible thing ever. Wow, I can't believe you had to do that. I can't imagine what would happen if I ever lost my mother. Like, the more that the intensity of the reaction starts to be about the other person, right? And you see the reason why people do that, right? Then the more I start to get offended and then be like, look, that it's not about you, right? And we see that a lot. That's just like one example, but we see that a lot with white allies where somebody comes into awareness and then they tend to kind of focus on it. And then they really do, even without knowing it, think like, I don't know what would happen if I did that, and then, but the fear is also part of that. Then they have their fear of like, what if I say the wrong thing or whatever? And then all of a sudden the fear makes it more about them, and then they don't come across as authentic, right? So the invitation is to go back and to be like, okay, why am I feeling afraid? Why am I, what's happening with me? And then if you do, misstep or say something or whatever, acting with humility and saying like, oh gosh, I'm sorry. Like, oh, I didn't mean to say that. Or, but I think especially when we work with like CEOs or high level leaders who don't necessarily have a whole lot of awareness and who are so fearful of doing or saying the wrong thing, one of the best things that we can do when we're working with them is help them come back to like, okay, let's talk about that fear. Like, where is that coming from? Let's work through that, because it's real, and it's important to work through it. Because once you do, then that humility and that vulnerability can come through in a way that feels authentic. So,
could I just quickly add that feeling fear is not a problem. It's what we do with it, as you're saying, Lesley. If we allow our fear to keep us on the sidelines or to center our experiences, or to somehow guard us from the discomfort of embarking on the unknown in this work, then that fear is dehumanizing to us, and it allows dehumanizing systems to be perpetuated. But if we notice the fear and we say, oh my gosh, I'm so afraid, beautiful. That's where this work starts. And it's a point that we will return to many times in this work. So it's not, oh, I'm afraid, now I'm participating in white supremacy culture. It's like, no, I'm afraid, that's human. And now I get to choose whether I continue, participating, or whether I'm going to step into the inevitable discomfort and the unknown of this experience while being afraid versus holding myself back. So just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you very much for that. I mean, it is striking the extent to which fear can be, lead to healing, or to which fear can be incredibly damning for a set of relationships. Right. So I really like how you say it's what we do with that fear.